guys, like we're back. It's I'ma
Okay,
let you finish.
because we're inarticulate. Because like I'm a woman and you're
And I'm
black,
black,
so
and
like we're inarticulate. So like
I
this
I
show,
don't even
you
know if I'll be
know,
able to get through
I
enough
think I think
sentences
we
and
should do
thoughts
this
to make it through
show
this
like with
show.
puppets today because like I'm inarticulate and I can't articulate the philosophy of podcasting.
You,
Courtney,
that motherfucker. I mean,
it's not.
it's like,
It's
are you?
not
First of all,
surprising.
hi, it's Courtney.
Hi,
I'ma
how
let
you
you
doing?
finish. Show number 156 on the Pantheon Podcast
All
Network.
right,
What's going
here.
on,
Okay,
everybody?
news
That
flat.
motherfucker.
Well, why do we have to drag mothers into it?
Well,
Why is that
motherfucker,
always the insult?
motherfucker is my favorite. It's
I
my
know, but
favorite
I
word.
just when you think about it,
Motherfucker.
men should be privileged if they get to have sex with a mother.
Well, it's not mother, it's motherfucker.
Well, anyway, so Jan Wenner, it's not even Jan Wenner, the former he is the co-founder of Rolling Stone magazine with Ralph Gleason, and the former. He no longer owns the magazine, so we should really preface that. Gave an interview to the New York Times. Shout out to the writer David Marquesi, because David Marquesi gave the man every single chance to say, "Are you sure you want to say that? Are you sure?" And you know, without
I mean, trying to be
there
like
was a lot. He was being very cool.
You know, the only thing he didn't say is, "Do you hear yourself?"
Well, if
He's like,
so, Jan Wenner said some. All right, first off, let's start with the fact that Jan Wenner is promoting a new book of interviews with called The Master. So first off, where's his publicist to tell him that's a very loaded term right now? Master. Like they don't even call it a master bedroom right now. So that's a loaded term. Secondly, with the exception of Jerry Garcia, everybody that he profiles in this book, and this is a collection of his interviews from Rolling Stone, he is within his power to put out any book he wants. If he had just said, this is a book of people I get along with and are my friends and therefore have gotten good interviews, that would have been great. But he couches this as, so Jerry Garcia is the only like non-Anglo in the interviews. He couches it as when Marchese asks him, and please read the original New York Times interview, we put it online. You know, there's no women or black people in it. He couches it, Wenner, as, well, you know, they're not super articulate. Not all of them. It's not even almost.
And that's paraphrasing it, because it was something to the effect of, you know,
they're not the philosophers. They can't articulate the philosophy of rock and roll.
And he was like, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe, what do you say, maybe Otis Redding, maybe Marvin
No, he was
Gaye,
like, maybe Marvin Gaye.
I don't know. All
right, so it's
maybe, I mean, wait, but maybe.
Look, it's his book.
Right.
Here's the thing. It is his book. He can put out anything he wants. That he holds these opinions, anyone who has worked at Rolling Stone or knows him, it is not shocking. He is a very, 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 very wealthy man who has lived in a bubble, who hobnobs with celebrities. He allows his subjects to go back in and look at the interviews, which is like unheard of in journalism. If he had just said, this is a book of interviews by some of my favorite people, and left it at that. But that
these are the masters to me. You could have been like, you didn't have to even say anything about when you were asked to be like, well, actually, these are the people really I consider masters. It wasn't, I didn't determine it by race. It just so happened. And this is what I put in my book. But that's not what he felt. I'm glad he said the truth, because it's the part that people like me who worked in the music industry since the early 90s can tell you when it was really hard. And it's still hard at times. It's better now, but it was really hard to get artists who were selling millions of records. We couldn't get any coverage in mainstream stuff. Remember, it was a big deal if we got a black female artist in like a Vogue or a Elle, or like when Miguel got Lauren the cover of Harper's Bazaar. It was
but those fashion mag. This is a music magazine.
But no, hold on, let me finish. Because you said no, but because it's not but. It was just as hard. I'm going across the board to tell you.
Right.
When it was black artists, it was really hard. And those things came as a big deal because it was like, it didn't happen. The work, it didn't happen. We always felt blocked. And it would be like, but this person has sold 10 million of their debut album, and they'd be like, we don't care. And then in the music publication, it's the same, just all of it, because it was all going through these same gatekeepers. So this is something that we all knew, because we'd be fighting for these positions. So it's interesting to hear motherfuckers say it out loud now, just being like, yeah,
I
like,
think it was common knowledge for people
yeah.
because everyone I've spoken to, the thing that really does bother me, in terms of, another old man saying, old man yelling at the clouds. Like I said, if he had just framed the book as this is a collection
No,
interviews
listen,
with my
that's
friend.
not it. You could call it the Masters.
No, I
Where he
don't think you should call it
No,
the
I listen.
Masters.
I just got a master series from it's a master series from Shep Pettibone's remixes and Arthur Baker's. I don't think anybody's thinking of master that way.
No, they
What?
are.
Because
They are.
that to me is a little bit of a reach because I do think people are able to be masters in their field, right?
Can I?
But I think what is dumb is what he fucking said. You know what I mean? That is what it is, because that's how you know he was running that magazine when he was running that magazine, and why it was hard to get artists of color unless it was like Tina Turner, right? Made the cover. I think the first black women on the cover of Rolling Stone were LaBelle, right? I think it was the trio of LaBelle. But it was like it had to be certain things. You couldn't just get in there. And now you see why people like that, who were the gatekeepers,
Well, he
didn't
was.
view you on the same,
I
didn't
want
view
to
us on
make
the same level.
I want to make sure that people listening to this understand that, and I did not write a lot for Rolling Stone, but I did
Mhm.
write for Rolling Stone. I want to make
Right.
sure people understand this was not the editors, this was not the writers. And
Right.
did Jan Wenner take negative reviews out and replace them with Yes, and that is common knowledge within a certain way. It is
Right.
very, just as every editor in chief does at magazines. The difference is like you said, this was a man, and for people online to go, "Oh, Rolling Stone was stupid," it wasn't stupid.
No, it wasn't
It
stupid.
was the most important music magazine of its time. So I don't want to see
That's because
people.
these young people, some of them, they don't think about magazines as being important now, right? They don't understand that there was a time there was no internet, and even when the internet first came along, Rolling Stone was like the big. Getting a Rolling Stone cover was a big deal.
Um, but what is kind of really kind of ticking me off, and because of this interview, he is one of the founders of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He
Mhm.
was taken off the board of directors, which is many people do agree with that. But I don't want to hear this again couched in cancel culture, censorship. No one is taking money out of his mouth,
Right,
out of his hands. He
right.
has a right to say whatever he wants
He
to say,
absolutely
but you
does.
have to understand that when you say things that are so just like mind-numbingly like ignorant and unthinking and cruel to some ways, that there's going to be so this is not a bunch of liberals like punishing him. What they're Listen, you're not being on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, being the editor of a magazine. It's not a God-given right.
No,
It's
and here's
a
the thing.
it's
I'm going to say the thing that you can't, because you are. For full disclosure, Amy she votes in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The thing with him being there, people, it's not a cancel culture. It's like, if you have a high position in this board and you already think that black artists and female artists are not on the same level as, say, white men, you shouldn't have such a powerful position on the
right.
board that is supposed to be able to look at people's accomplishments evenly, because you're coming into it already being like, well, you're going to have to prove it to me that she and this lot over here are
And how
even.
articulate could Jerry Garcia have been? I mean, let's be
I
honest.
mean, the words that he chose was just so
Well,
like,
it's and also articulate. Can we
right.
agree that
I
that's
mean,
a buzzword?
Miss Thing,
That is a
Miss
buzzword.
Thing. That was the one that made me sit up straight. I was
He's
like,
so well spoken. He's so
ooh,
articulate.
I hate
That's a buzzword.
when people say that
Joni
to
Mitchell never
me.
would have sat down with an interview with him
Right.
because Jan Wenner, under his auspices, printed very sexist sort of stuff. Joni Mitchell has been in the magazine, but he didn't do the interview. So that is, make a friend of mine, who is a writer, said that it was actually astounding that he got such a great interview out of Mick Jagger, because Mick Jagger is not the guy who gives the good interviews. It's
Right.
Keith Richards. So it's not. It's the way he framed it, and
Mhm.
it's just very funny, and it speaks to the arrogance and the entitlement that
Mhm.
someone is giving you lifeline after lifeline. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And he just goes, yeah. So this is what he thinks. Luckily, he no longer really has that much impact on the culture. But
Right.
this is not an unusual thing. I mean,
No, that's the thing.
I wrote for Spin, and I had the editor in chief
No,
who was taken.
you wrote for all of the
But I
things at
want to
the
talk for
time when all
Spin.
of the fuckery
No,
was
but
still flying
no, but
around
it's
too a little
I
bit.
wrote for Spin, and
Yeah.
I interviewed three. I interviewed Exene Cervenka,
Uh,
Roseanne Cash, and
uh.
Sheila E. And he wanted me to ask him, sleeping around, like who had they slept with, among the many things. And I was just like, really? There was a time when it was like
uh,
getting drunk with the artist and hanging out was viewed
right.
as yeah. So
And he's like,
it,
find out who they're fucking. Like,
basically, to three married women
it's like,
with children. I don't know if Sheila E. has children, but the
right.
two of them, other two, had multi. Anyway, so Jan Wenner, he has gotten his comeuppance. It won't matter. He'll still have
No.
his beautiful house in the Hamptons.
And whatever other
It's
one.
sad that a gay man who probably had to go through unbelievable resistance in a very macho culture is like this. But again, speaking to writers, speaking to people, this is not, it's just that he said it. It's not unusual. It's not that it's not that it's not unusual. It's not like some
Nobody
shocking.
black who was around, especially those periods in the music industry. Nobody of color. We weren't surprised. We're like,
No,
of
nobody was
course,
surprised.
yeah. We're like,
Nobody's
of course.
surprised.
It's just amazing to hear everybody just be so comfortable and say it all out loud now. Because now everybody, before it was always hid behind no, no, no. Now they're like, well, I don't really see that as this.
Well,
I'm
not
like, of course you
everybody.
don't.
Jan Wenner.
Right.
Let's make it
Well,
clear
he's
that
not
not
the. No, I
everybody.
just said there's been
Yeah.
other people who revealed themselves. Is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. It's what. Oh, can I just say it?
Sexism and misogyny is not limited to white men.
Okay, can I just give an honorary shout out? I don't watch Good Morning America. I don't. I'm not a Good
Me
Morning
neither.
America person. But a friend of mine sent me a clip of the very fierce Juju Chang, who is a real journalist who is not to be fucked with, and Julie Chen Moonves has some new memoir that she's hawking where it's about her relationship with God, and she's coming on there trying to be like this new godly version of herself. And Juju brings up the shit with her husband, and you supporting her husband, and you can almost see fire flash through Julie's eyes. And she's like, oh, well, we weren't here to talk about that, but da 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 da.
Well, we're not here to. I can see your point.
Yeah, I can too, but you're a journalist. You have a memoir. You supported
I'm
your
sorry.
husband.
Julie Chang is a journalist.
Well, she started as a journalist.
Oh, did she? Okay.
Yeah.
I always thought she
I
was
love your
TV.
shade.
No, it's
Your
not shade. It is not shade.
You didn't know that she was originally a journalist?
No, I
and
thought
on
she was always like an on-air personality person.
No,
Seriously,
she
I didn't know.
originally started on the
A
news
print
and
journalist?
everything.
A print
Well, I
journalist?
believe TV journalist and,
Attorney
and
General.
a reporter.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't know. I honestly did
I believe
not
she
know.
started as a reporter, then she was on
Okay,
the news,
all right,
and then
all right.
she transferred to all the other stuff. But anyway, I just feel like she asked her the questions that I wanted asked, and you could tell that Julie Chen did not appreciate it, but I was happy that Juju asked them. I'm here for people stopping to think they could come with fluff when you know you've been around and involved in some bullshit and think people are not supposed to ask you about the bullshit. If you don't want to be asked about the bullshit, don't do interviews. Anyway, what's our next subject?
Russell Brand is a rapist. Next. I'm not even using
Right.
alleged. I know
Right.
you always tell me to. I'm not.
You have to. Because
don't.
yes, you do.
Who's going to come after me? I'll
Okay,
give you my
guess what?
address,
All right,
everybody.
stop. You
Alleged
say-
rape.
stop.
All right, I said alleged.
Here's the thing.
I said alleged.
You
I
do
said
that.
alleged. I said alleged. I said alleged. There.
You have to. You have to.
No, I don't.
Okay, well, you don't in
I
person.
just said
so
alleged. All right,
okay,
I'll take
well-
it back. Russell Brand is currently the subject of investigation by 4 news sources in the UK, and several women have come forward with very credible accounts of sexual abuse, highly unprofessional, dominating, cruel behavior, and just inappropriate relationships and rape. Sexual abuse being rape. Let's just put it that way. This is not some conspiracy to bring down Russell Brand because he is now a
Isn't this
neo.
not the first time that this? I feel like though.
That's what I'm saying.
Wasn't
It's
there
not
something
like,
in the past? I
yeah,
can't
there
remember
is.
something.
Listen. Russell Brand is very
First of all, I
First of all,
don't like him.
I don't
I'm
find
not
him
a
funny.
fan.
The whole thing, I don't get it.
Remember, this is
But
the man who broke up with Katy Perry via text right before she was
well,
about to
that's
step on stage in a cancel.
yeah,
They were married to tell her he
yeah.
wants to divorce
But
her.
Russell Brand is of this whole realm of junkies who clean up and then find spirituality and then are preaching about
The
that.
most very very
He's an
judgmental.
anti-vaxxer. He's, palsy, he has posed for pictures with Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle. He's of that Joe Rogan kind of school. He's offering advice. If you've seen him on talk shows, he is very preachy, doesn't let anybody get a word in, very misogynist, but in a I'm a Hindu kind of nonsense way. So I am not surprised. This is not these women coming to the news source. This is the news source finding it. And yes, the British press is problematic at times, but his tours have been canceled in the UK. He's
YouTube
not
stopped. They took away the monetization of his
good.
channel.
Like I said, I am not surprised at all.
You know how there's sometimes you hear something about some people, you're like, oh my God, I
You
can't
just
believe
have to
it.
look at him and know
then-
it's real.
And then,
Look at him. Does he
don't
not
make me
reek
laugh,
of
it's not.
sleazy? He reeks of sleaze.
Kinda, I
No,
don't want
he
to agree with you on this.
No, but you are
But at
agreeing
the
with me.
but
He reeks of
I
sleaze.
didn't look and say that seems impossible.
No.
That didn't come out of my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, there were certain people you
I
go,
was like,
"Nah,
there's
not
something
him."
about you that always
And
kind
he's
of
all like,
gets on my.
"Oh, I was really promiscuous." Okay, that's great. You're really promiscuous. You still have to ask the woman if she wants to do it.
I always think those people who always get on TV or anything and try to tell us all about ourselves and that they know more than everything, they're always the ones that are the fucking messiest out of everybody.
It's like
Messy.
listen, it's people they're preachy. It's like
Yeah.
junkies. Bless her, I have no problem, but it's like, shut up. That's great that you're not getting
Your
high
hair's
anymore.
getting long.
It's very long, and
I was about to say
stand it.
your
It's
hair's getting
no, it's
long.
ridiculous. Well, I've had it pinned up.
I don't
It's
feel like
way
I've seen
too-
your hair that long in a long
No.
time.
It hasn't been this long in a long time. It's
I'm like,
driving me nuts. Actually,
really?
I'm
Like,
getting
what's
it cut
going
too.
on? I was supposed to
No,
say you haven't cut
it's
it.
super. No, it's super.
Yeah.
Because I never mess with my hair in the summer.
Oh my God, look how long it is.
No, it's ridiculous. I know. It's ridiculous. It's like halfway down my back. I don't mess with my hair in the summer because it's so
Right.
humid. I have it up all the time anyway.
Right.
No, it's ridiculous.
No, it's good. Oh my God.
I have really good hair too.
Oh,
For
look
those
how
of you who
cute.
can't see, I know
No,
it's very
she does.
cute.
It does.
I
It
have
looks-
excellent hair. I have
I'm
the
kind of
Hungarian
like,
hair.
oh shit.
No, it's gray, but it's even grown out gray. Well, I know. Look at this. I
know.
can make a mustache. Look at
This
that.
show
I
is
can
so
make a beard.
ridiculous. We're going from rape
No.
allegations
All
to, oh my
right.
God, look at your hair.
No, my hair looks good.
It
It really does. No, it
I was
really
kind
does.
of gagged. I just looked down
No.
and I was like, wait a minute.
I am filled with self-loathing and self-doubt, but the one
But you're
thing I
like,
can say
yeah,
about I have good
motherfucker.
hair. I have
Yeah,
really good hair.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Remember we talked about Puffy and he's publishing, and we were like,
And
"There's got to be a
No,
catch.
no.
There's got to be a catch."
And here's
What
the
is the
thing.
catch?
I was like, I love that people are getting their ownership. Ownership to me is always important. I don't care how many years. Give people. But I was like, I just don't feel like he's doing this out of the
goodness of his
own
heart. Puffy has never done anything out of the goodness of his heart. Who would have thought, if you had told me in 1992 that Aubrey O'Day would be the Norma Ray of the music, the Karen Silkwood of the music industry?
I mean, Miss
The least talented member of a group that already was questioned, except for Dawn Richards, was
Right.
questionably talented to begin with.
Yeah,
If you
Dawn
had told
was
me,
really talented.
no,
though.
and Dawn
could-
continues to be talented.
Yeah.
If you had told me that Aubrey freaking O'Day, another one who dated Donald Trump, what is it with these women?
I mean,
Ugh.
Junior, right? Junior.
Oh God, yes.
Junior,
I mean,
yeah.
but anyway, that she would just blow up Puffy. So yeah, she's like, okay, yeah, he offered
She said, let
I
me
had to sign an NDA.
She said, she didn't sign it.
No, I know, but they wanted him.
She reads this whole list where it's like, you have to sign an NDA, which I get, that happens. I hate it, but that happens a lot.
Yeah,
So
that happens a lot.
But then it's also like, you have to sign all these waivers being like, yes, and I let go of any claims I could have about the
Right. I won't say the word danity and
All of these
keen in a
things,
sentence.
all the shit.
You know, I was on Making the Band.
Were you?
Yes. Yes. For 5 seconds.
What episode?
I don't know. I was doing a story for Vibe about reality, when there was all these like R&B artists doing reality shows, and I
Mhm,
went to the Making the Band house
mhm,
in Times Square. I had to
uh-huh,
sign more documents than I've ever had. I
right,
known I was going to be on TV, I might have like put on a little bit of makeup, and I sat in a room with all of them.
mhm,
And there is something online somewhere, if you find it, where they're basically just making fun of my whiteness and my old
right.
ageness comparative. Yes, that's my big claim to fame. I was actually on Making the Band for 5 seconds, but I had to
Oh,
sign us. So I too will be going to Puffy and asking for my royalties back.
you know what I'm saying? I feel like,
He's a
I'm like on a you see me in one of those making the videos. Remember
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
used to
But
have
I
making the
was like,
videos and all that
I
bullshit.
got a lot of like street cred off of
I'm
that.
sure, honey, because you were in the house. Was it the year that he made them walk the juniors to get the
No, no,
cheesecake?
no. I did. That was great. I got to say, it was
It was
horrible.
entertaining television.
It was
That was when
entertaining
MTV
television.
was good, when it had
Yeah, that's
shit
good.
like that,
No,
you know?
yeah, we're gonna walk up, but again, this is how. And where are any of them now? Any of them? Exactly. I can name one member of that group.
Wait, Dylon, right? Doesn't
No,
Dylon
Choppa.
Oh, I remember no, I remember Babs Bunny.
Yeah, well, that was a really ends up really being a stupid name,
And
right?
then
Because
and
you're
then there was the one Sarah. Remember the Sarah was the
yeah,
singer.
I just know they were just it was just
Mm,
hilarious. So,
mhm.
all right, talk shows. So, can I just say that Bill Maher is awful? Awful. I don't know why anybody watches Bill Maher. Seriously,
And now
seriously,
he's backed off. He's not
they've
coming back
all
either.
backing off. They're
They're
not gonna.
all
They're gonna honor because Drew Barrymore, who's the only sane one in the group, they realize it's good to know that like people have the power, as the song goes. Everybody went, "Are you kidding me?" And she's somebody who. Bill Maher, I didn't think would do it because he's so Mr. Cancel Culture. Everybody's trying to cancel me. It's like, no, you're just not funny. That's why people don't laugh at your jokes
Or
because
the
you're not
thing
funny.
is, we used to like you, but then it got weird. Like I used
Well,
to
he
fuck with,
became like
I used to
all these
fuck
old
Bill with Bill
men.
Maher for years. From politically incorrect, I went into real time, and I watched real time for years, and then it just got
He turned. He got very
something. I
angry.
was like, this is doing
It's
something
not
else.
he turned into a libertarian, and
Mhm.
he basically created all these idiots like that
And
Milo
you know,
guy.
sometimes one of those white guys, and because he's been liked by black culture, thinks he can speak on it.
Oh,
Sometimes
like by
he started
yeah.
doing some shit that I'd be like, yeah,
No, just because you're sleeping with Corinne Steffens
you
doesn't
know what
give
I
you a
mean?
right to use the N
Hello,
word on television.
all of the things.
And he
Have a
treated her
seat.
like crap too.
I
I
mean,
I just want to say one thing, and this is not shade, okay?
mhm.
But at least in New York City, the Jennifer Hudson show is on at 7:30 in the morning because
No, it
my
comes. That's when it repeats. It comes on at
oh,
11
okay.
o'clock.
Because as a TLC watcher,
Hmm.
when I turn on my TV in the morning, it'll still be on TLC, and I'm like, what?
No, that's where it repeats. It comes on
Okay, because
Channel
I
5.
thought, come on, she deserves better than
The Sherry Shepherd, who is the only, she did come back. Sherry came back.
well, whatever.
Like-
I mean, somebody,
yeah.
why are I don't understand it. They're not holding. I honestly, why Whoopi Goldberg is on air. She is a SAG member.
Yes.
She is, and so is probably Joy Behar. And I really
Well,
wish
you
that
know the View. Well, the View goes through the news division, and that's
I
where
know,
it's
but
different.
she's a SAG member.
It's true, but
She
she's
should
not
be.
doing it. But she's not doing a. I know it's a hard one.
I
It's a
know.
hard one.
You would just
It's
think, even if she did it symbolically for a week.
and she's been out there, and I want to say she went on the line, and she talks about the strike a
All
lot,
right, good.
and
All
she
right.
talks about why they're on strike. She talks about it a lot. She does. I
All
will
right,
say.
good.
So
All right, I didn't watch the VMAs. I didn't even. Okay, you know how you know the
I didn't watch
VMAs
that shit
don't
either.
matter
No,
anymore?
right.
No, you know how you know? It was on a
Hmm.
Tuesday.
Right, Miss Thing,
It was
and
on a
wait,
Tuesday.
Miss Thing, and wait, in Jersey, in Jersey,
Well, no, the
and this is
Jersey,
no,
they've
this is
done that
not.
before.
No, but oh, that's just it. Tuesday on a Jersey and Tuesday. It's just it makes it really different. Like, let me just say this: I used to go to the VMAs every year. I've worked the VMAs. I've gone as a guest at the VMAs. I worked at MTV. I have a friend who always goes, who works on the production side, who went and said she stayed for an hour. She was like, there was nobody there. She was like, none of the production people, all the people we would normally see, nobody comes to that anymore. Nobody really in the
Well,
production.
I think the greatest moment from what I see is when Wyclef introducing Shakira, said she has done more for hip hop than anybody else. So I think that's great. That is like, really, should the hips don't lie didn't mean hip hop. It meant that. Let's just talk briefly. Yeah, so nobody watches that, Johnny.
Mhm.
Let's just talk briefly because this is a kind of serious story, and then we're going to bring on our guest, author
Mhm.
Bruce Pollock. Do you want to take a break for a sec? Let's take a break, and then we'll
Okay.
come. We'll talk about.
We'll be right back, right after this break.
Hello, Pantheon Podcast listeners. Christian Swain here to tell you more about my experience with Raycon earbuds. Our family now has 3 pairs of Raycon earbuds around the house, and my wife just grabbed a pair of the Headphone Pros to replace some headphones from a company that was double the price. And yes, she loves them. Now, if you haven't pulled the trigger on a pair of Raycons, or even if you have, but you're in the market for another pair because they're just that good, well, now is the time to check them out, because they just launched their upgraded model of the best-selling everyday earbuds. With Raycon's upgraded everyday earbuds, now you also get active noise cancellation, ergonomic design, and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. New quick charge function, 3 customizable sound styles, plus awareness mode. Available in a variety of vibrant new colors to complement any and all skin tones. I even have a pair of earbuds in a cool green color. I have tried just about every earbud known to humankind, and these Raycons are fantastic. Seriously, if you've been wanting to check out Raycons, there truly is no better time. You're going to ask yourself why you didn't check them out sooner, and Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to buyraycon.com/Pantheon today to get 20% off your Raycon order, plus free shipping. That's right, you'll get 20% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/Pantheon. buyraycon.com/Pantheon.
And we're back.
We're back. All right. So we just want to talk briefly before we introduce our guest, author Bruce Pollock, who's going to talk about his book, The Bleecker Street. But I have a lisp. I need to get this corrected. The Bleecker Street Tapes, Echoes of Greenwich Village. It's really bad.
Back when it was called Greenwich Village.
Yes.
Back when Greenwich Village actually meant something.
There's a subsect of Mexican music called narco corridos, which is it's songs that speak about the drug trade
and real things real crimes that have happened.
So the artist, please tell me I'm
Peso Puma.
Thank you. He debuted number 3 in the Billboard chart. So this is
he's a big deal right now.
Won a Grammy for Mexican regional music. He has been credibly
threatened. His haircut is all of the young and all of the young guys are getting the haircut.
Oh, that explains why I'm seeing a lot of bad hair in Mexican people.
It's that haircut. They love that. It's the popular cut.
He has been credibly threatened by drug cartels to the point where his U.S. tour, first the shows were postponed, and now they have been canceled.
Well, the threat was there was one that said if you show up on October 14th, it'll be the last time you show up.
That's a credible threat. And he's like friends with El Chapo's son, and he's from it's also a form of music that I would say that it just shows the importance and vitality of a genre outside of hip hop, outside of pop. Because this guy's a huge, huge star, but I don't think he'll be touring the United States.
Well, what did I say to you? We said this all the time. Don't play with the streets. They're real, and they will come calling. When you knock on the door, they will open the door.
Anyone who saw 3 episodes of Narcos know that these guys are not kidding around. Not kidding around. Yeah, so I hope he's fine. His music is actually really good. He's really interesting. He's got a weird voice, I guess, to match his weird hair. And this is a really awful segue, and I'm apologizing right off the bat. I'm very tired. I had I taught yesterday and I came in early to set up all my audio visual stuff to be online. I get into the lecture hall. They have now added, I have 48 students in this class. It's a small town. Half of them are still bitching that I'm not ninth wonder. And I get in there and none of the equipment works. And then they had to bring in a tech person, and then we switched classrooms and nothing worked. And I went, okay, it was very upsetting. Anyway, Bruce Pollock is a veteran writer. I worked at Entertainment Weekly too, but you must have been actually there. I was just, he is an author, editor, rock historian, and record producer. Oh, we got to talk about that. Founding editor-in-chief of the magazine Guitar for the Practicing Musician, executive A&R producer. Oh, he's got quite the CV. Executive A&R producer at BMG and Sony BMG, and a columnist. What column did you write, Bruce?
For who?
EW.
A number of columns.
Oh, really? I was just one of those. I worked with Ron Gibbons. That was my guy, and Greg. But I was there like in the beginning. I was the hippity hoppity girl. Entertainment Weekly, USA Today, Viva, Video Review, The Gannett, Western Treasure, and Songfacts.com. He is currently, anyway, he wrote a book. I'm going to hold it up that nobody can see it. I do this every time. I hold up books that nobody can see. But Courtney's talking about my hair and nobody can see that either. Bleecker Street Tapes, Echoes of Greenwich Village. Welcome, Bruce. So this...
I have had no death threats.
That can be arranged. Well, that might be because everybody you write about, these are older interviews, is either dead or too old to kill you.
Exactly.
But they're really kind. They'd probably stop at that really good pastry shop on Bleecker and bring you a nice sort of box of pastries when they come.
Is that place still there?
I believe it's still there.
The Italian place?
It is still there.
Yeah. There's not much left on Bleecker Street. So This book is really interesting because I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is a collection of interviews that you did starting in the 70s, right? 70s up until early aughts. I'm going to go out on a limb here that say many people who listen to this show are not really aware of folk music as it pertains to New York City at a specific time. So I wanted to ask you first off, and they don't even know it's called Greenwich Village. They think it's called the West Village. I wanted to ask you, Greenwich Village, where's that? I wanted to ask you what drew you to this topic and what, well, let's just talk about that. What drew you to talk about folk music and its connection to New York City?
Well, because I was there at the time. This was the mid-'60s. And I think folk music was the hip-hop of its era, which was basically about 3 years. And I was living there and going to Washington Square and going to the Gaslight. And all I saw was the folk musicians of the time. And that's what I wrote songs with my roommate, which didn't get anywhere, but they were kind of folk songs. And that was the music I listened to, basically because of Bob Dylan.
Now, Bob, this is going to, please don't, explain, because people think, folk music, there's different memories of it. I mean, I grew up in a household, well, my father hated all singers, like literally, except for Johnny Hartman and Barbara, the woman who sang The Music Man, Barbara Cook. Those are the only two singers I heard in the house. But there was a folk music tradition. I mean, we're not going to go back to Irish fiddle players or anything like that, but there was a folk music tradition starting in the 50s with, Pete Seeger and obviously Woody Guthrie before him. And then Dylan comes in and suddenly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am, suddenly Dylan becomes like a rock star of folk music. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And he changed the whole landscape of what folk music could be. Originally, it was people thought of folk music. I thought of it as the songs just sing around the campfire, the cliche of "Kumbaya," which has become the signature song of anything folk. And so it was not really a music that he really thought was very important. Dylan came along and used it to express himself, to express what he felt about the world, and led every single college kid to drop out of school and pick up a guitar.
Well, how'd that work out for them? No, I'm just kidding.
It worked out for some of them.
Yeah, for some. I've read I haven't. I am of a very mixed opinion about Dylan, but I don't even want to go into that. I like Dylan's songs best when sung by other people. And it's not that I don't think he's obviously a very evocative singer and a very idiosyncratic singer. I have problems with Dylan probably because I've read too many books written by women who were in Dylan's life. So he would not get any awards for sensitivity. But in these books, whenever you read about folk music of that time, Dave Van Ronk is the guy that keeps coming out. Like he's sort of the missing link, but the one Dave Van Ronk and Phil Oakes both are the ones who sort of, if it wasn't for them, but they never got the shine. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well,
Did
Dave
a
Van
great
Ronk,
interview with Dave Van Ronk and the New Yorker.
yeah, he was a fantastic person to talk to, and he was the linchpin. He hosted the Gaslight Hootenannies on Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
He was steeped in the blues. He knew like probably every song in existence, even back to those Irish folk songs.
Yeah.
And he was like kind of not a father, an uncle figure to everybody. And they'd come in just as Dylan supposedly was looking for Woody Guthrie. A lot of other people were coming in looking for Dave Van Ronk.
Right.
And Phil Oakes was a blatant protest singer. I mean, he was irritated by everything. He was like a journalist writing long poems about every conceivable, the Vietnam War, like 5 years before anybody else knew about it.
He's like Jimmy Breslin, if Jimmy Breslin could sing. Jimmy Breslin being a very New York reference, I guess, of a certain age. When I was telling Courtney about the book, I was mentioning some of the writers, and when I mentioned Marie Meldauer, Courtney, what were you saying about that? That you were
Well, first of all, I have one of her albums, but I have that album because I love Midnight at the Oasis, and I really like the music on the album, but I had no idea she was considered folk. I thought she was like soft rock, like Ricky Lee Jones or something.
What can you just talk? So in that, talk about like.
Well, actually, here's my next question.
Scene.
Yeah, because this is what I want to say. Like, was Laura Nero considered rock, or was she considered folk?
If she had been considered folk, I would have put her in the book because she gave very few interviews, and I did one with her, and she had some beautiful things to say, but she was, pop, I would say.
You would say she was pop.
She was not really. She was pop, Broadway, jazz, almost everything but folk.
And then, soul music, and of course,
and Janice Ian, who I have a couple of her albums as well. Was she innovative? Like, folk is not really. I know some Joan Baez music, right? Like, I think everybody knows some Joan Baez music, but I don't really know a lot about folk music. It wasn't really my genre at all.
Yeah, Janice Ian was part of the crowd. They would have these things Sundays at the Village Gate, where like a dozen different folk performers would sing 3 songs apiece, and she was up there, and she was like about 15 or something when she had a hit record, and so she
was that Society's Child?
Yeah, so writing about issues, wasn't writing about herself, as she said in the interview, but writing about things she saw.
I do think it is interesting. Like you've made a really good point, because when I hear folk music now, it really was almost like the hip hop of their generation. People were really talking about things that were happening in the world, society, the changes that were happening. It was kind of like almost directly from the streets to being put on record. Because when you listen to some of the songs now, it really is you can see the correlation of what was happening in either New York or the world at the time that a lot of these records were made. And I think that is why so many of those artists are still held in a high regard when they're spoken about, because that music is still important and it still resonates.
It really changed the the focus of music. Before that, you had the top 40, which was anything but personal. And folk music itself was something that happened in the 16th century. So this brought it right up into the 1960s, the Kennedy era, and everybody was expressing themselves, and nobody was making. Some people made the charts in the low numbers, like Phil Oakes. Joan Baez covered a Phil Oakes song, and Dylan in 1965 hit
But
the
did
top.
he go? When he went electric? Did he get on the charts or beforehand?
No, when he went electric.
Right. So what was? I know that when you read back, Courtney, I'm sorry, but I was going to say when you read back on the history of music and that moment when he goes electric, that's almost like his. And now we are done with you. You know, was that? Is that too simplistic a reading of how it was taken?
It's one of the readings, definitely. It was. Another reading is that he joined forces with what was giving him a bigger reach, so his words would get heard by more people. And other people were, angry that he didn't stay where he was. Although he was angry, they were angry at him at the beginning. So they've always been angry at him.
Well, people want you to. I wanted to. It's really funny because when I'm looking at the people, so when I was a kid, and I'm not really a kid, not Buff. Melanie was a pop star. Melanie had top 40 hits. You know, Brand New Key and Candle in the Wind, which I believe I bought the 45s. John Sebastian of the
I
Loving
love
Soul.
Brand New Key.
I love Candle in the Wind. I mean, it's
I
like
love
right. She
Brand
was
New
great.
Key. I know she
She's
was great.
she still is great. I mean, Peter Paul and Mary had top 40 hits. John Sebastian certainly had top. Loving Spoonful. Roger McGuinn had, all these people. You start looking at them. Peter Tork, I don't know, in a little group called the Monkees, obviously had top 40 hits. It's very interesting well, how they made that kind of segue. Is it something that you think that folk kind of as a pure genre started dying out and they were like, hey, I'm a songwriter, I need to kind of go to the next level? Was it
Because the
seen as a
period for folk
portrayal?
seems so, its peak seems so, for most music genres, you get a longer period. The folk period where it was popular seemed very, very short.
Yeah, you have to factor the Beatles in there. The Beatles and Dylan created, the hybrid genre of folk rock. And folk rock was a way of saying that the folk music people were getting into groups and were forming rock bands. And like Roger McGuinn said, I walked down the streets of the village and I heard some promoter say, what we need is four of him. And so that's Peter Tork.
That's interesting that you say that you consider the Beatles to be folk. I mean, to me,
No, the Beatles were more influenced by Dylan, and
right, right,
Dylan was influenced by the Beatles.
right,
Beatles. There was one week when the Beatles had all the top five songs on the charts, and
right,
Dylan and the Animals, also from England, did "House of the Rising Sun," which was an old folk tune. So
right,
people were mixing up the genres, and the Beatles, John Lennon wrote "Help," and they started to get more introspective, and they started to see, well, we can do more than just have hits. And
right.
meanwhile, they had the clout so that anything they did became a hit.
Well, here's my question to both of you, because this I don't know. I know the history of people being really turned out when they say Dylan went electric. But was that first album when he went electric, was it successful?
Well, he basically went electric in stages.
Okay.
There were some albums that had electric instruments. They had John Hammond, the blues musician, playing guitar. Sebastian was invited to play bass on an album, and eventually, when Like a Rolling Stone became a hit, then the album followed it. So it took a few albums for him to get a foothold.
And it was also live performance. I mean, it
So
was
that was the
when
difference.
he
He never
connected
had
with
like
the band.
he
When he connected with the band. When he connected with the band. It's funny. You can't even imagine like a Rolling Stone being done acoustic.
right.
Or
And
along
he
the
never went
Watchtower.
back, right? Once he went electric, he never went back to an acoustic style. It was always
Oh,
electric from
no,
that
well,
point on.
he is famous for like putting out like 2 or 3 albums in a genre and then switching. So in one period, I think in the '80s, he did a set of blues covers, and then he did this Frank Sinatra set, and he did the religious music, and he did country music. So he went all over the place. He was not restrained. But the electric period just ushered in that whole sound, and for a while, Simon and Garfunkel, for a while, and the Byrds were very, very powerful presences.
And it's also speaking to what's going on in the country. I mean, and everything. It was getting my memories, such as they are, of the '60s, because I am old enough to remember. I mean, I remember Martin Luther King being killed. I was little, but I do remember that. I remember moratoriums. Acoustic music wouldn't have suited what the hell was going on in this country in the '60s. It had to be really loud, and
Right.
it had to be like in your face, because there was like a true youth culture then. I mean, youth culture now is just, I don't know. It's
They have
not
one. It's
the
just
same.
different.
It's
It's
different.
different.
It's different.
Different.
I wanted to ask you, we were talking about the Jan Wenner thing. The 1-800, this is what, yeah. How were women? I mean, okay, I'm going to preface it by saying women are never treated well. Now we will move on from that. Women and black people are never treated well.
Mhm.
The end.
Mhm.
You focus on Richie Havens, who was in the Woodstock film, like a career making moment in the Woodstock film. Can you talk about like the reaction to black folk and women back then?
Well, you're talking about women in general or women
No,
performers?
women general, we know we were treated like shit. The songwriters.
The songwriters. I think I have a bunch of them. Buffy St. Marie,
Right.
and Janice Ian, and
And the Roaches, of course.
that was a little later.
Yeah.
Van Vega. No, I they weren't that Joan Baez didn't even write her own songs, but
Right.
I don't think there was any implicit segregation at that point. Len Chandler, who just passed away, was an important figure in the scene. So if you had something to offer, then people were disregarded race and gender. I mean, it's supposed to be very civil rights oriented, and so it was on top of everyone's
But the
mind.
village was like that back then. That's when the village, just from my limited knowledge of looking back, and even when I was young, first started coming to the village, it felt like a place where a lot of different types of people kind of blended together.
There was, the Washington Square was another focal point, and every Sunday, around the fountain, every 5 feet would be a different act. And I happen to remember this guy Major Wiley was his name. I don't think he ever had a recording contract, uh, and he was kind of in his spare time he was one of the neighborhood winos, I think. But on Sundays, he was amazing, and so he'd be my first stop whenever I saw him.
You go hear it, Kel, hear his set. I know that this book is, and it is very, sort of like as New York is associated with hip hop in many ways, folk music is definitely associated with New York, but there were obviously other scenes. I mean, San Francisco had a scene, LA. Was there competition between the two scenes, or was it just sort of seen as this is your thing, this is our thing?
Well, there was probably a competition, but like Cambridge was a big scene. That's Joan Baez came out of there, Tom Rush, the Queskin Jug Band, which Maria Muldar was part of. They were fixtures at Club 47. That was the
Right.
gaslight of Boston, of Cambridge. Berkeley, was another hotbed of.
So you need a college around.
I was about to say, it sounds very like NYU.
Well,
Harvard.
NYU was not NYU back then. You know, NYU was NYU, but it wasn't. They owned half of New York City. You know?
But in fact, Bob Dylan, in Minnesota, Dinkytown it was called,
Right.
and he was part of that scene.
Oh, I've been to Dinkytown actually.
Yeah,
It's actually called Dinkytown.
This conversation really is making me miss the bottom line, because I feel like I used to go see so many incredible
so many
New
good
York
shows at
sort
the
of
bottom
based
line.
artists at the bottom line, right off of the park, and just that kind of essence of a singer from New York. Like, I feel like we don't have anybody born and bred that's like that anymore. These singer-songwriter that's kind of writing about life in New York and what's happening here. I just
well,
don't see
here's a
that
guy.
anymore.
You find him. He goes by the name of Milton. He wrote an incredible song. It's kind of Springsteen-esque about living in the city about maybe 5 years ago, but didn't really make an impact.
Why do you think? And before we bid you adieu, and thank you so much for doing this, and we apologize for the confusion, but we've had technical issues. Just not even. Why do you think? Is there a comparable folk music sound now, or do you think things have gone that we're so commercial, that things are so gentrified, that things are so over the, that it's such a business now? Do you think that it's even possible? Because I know there was like all the kind of neo, Moldy Peaches and Beck, I guess, sort of that kind of stuff back. I'm not saying it to be dismissive stuff. I'm just saying that kind of sound. Do you think it's even possible now, or do you think it's a moment of its time?
Well, it's definitely a moment of its time, and so a lot of things, and you had the war starting up, and you had a whole generation facing and running away from the draft, and so there's a lot of self-interest involved in promoting that kind of music. Like, I think Dave Van Ronk goes into it in great depth about all the things that were happening that came together, the whole baby boom influx. So now everything is scattered, and it's actually it's the pendulum swung in the completely opposite direction, and they're still reacting to the stuff from the '60s.
Well, I don't think anybody's reacting to anything. That's the problem. I mean, we talk about this. There is a constant state of outrage, but it's about the stupidest stuff. Like the stuff you should be outraged about, you're not, but the stuff that, is like, who cares what you wear on the Senate floor? Everybody's flipping out about. But do you hear anybody? I mean, I hate to bring it back to hip hop, because the only reason I say that is because I teach a hip hop class. Teach being really the teach a hip hop class. But do you hear any kind of children or grandchildren of that sound now, or that ethos, or the ethos even?
It still lingers in there are folk music shows on the radio and folk music channels and people with acoustic guitars, but it certainly doesn't have the impact. And like, I was thinking about hip hop, and you probably would mention this in the first class, but the thing that hip hop had when it first started as rap and gangster rap was the same threatening feeling that people had about rock and roll in the 50s.
Well, actually, when hip hop started, it was party music, and that gangster doesn't come until like the 90s. But I see what you're saying, that it was a pushback against something. It was like that's your music, this is our music,
And it was threatening the status quo, which rock was in the 50s.
Right.
Well, Taylor Swift gave the young kids a version of folk, maybe, with folklore.
Well, you're talking about, I mean, Fight the Power. If you took Bomb Squad out of Fight the Power, it's a folk song. I mean, really, if you took It Was a Good Day out of, even F the Police, if you took that, I mean, there is elements of it, the storytelling aspect of it, I would say, speaks to that,
People on the ground telling what's happening in their lives.
Right. I don't even grime, even though I don't know what's going on with grime. Speaking of which, we need to have a Top Boy
But
conversation.
I like it. Listen, grime is great.
No, grime is great, but you
telling
don't
you what's
understand.
happening. But it's telling you what's happening in the
Right.
streets in their neighborhood. It's the
Oh,
same
no, not
thing,
grime.
yeah.
I got mixed up. I love grime. Drill. That's what I meant.
Oh, drill.
Yeah, drill. We're too old to talk about drill.
Mm-hmm.
We really are.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact when I even mention drill to people, they look at me like I'm assuming.
They're like the one with the bits. They're like,
no, yeah, I'm assuming old white woman that
Right.
you're referring to a power tool.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, and then they go away. You remind me of
All
my
right,
mom.
Amy, take us out for the week.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to take you out. Bruce, first, I'm not going to take you out. Like, I would love to take you all out for a cup of coffee. And Courtney, stop sending pictures of my building when you're in my neighborhood and not stopping by. You could see my hair in person if you would ring my goddamn bell. Anita, whatever, Ward.
I don't believe in just dropping by someone's home and then.
No, he walks by my house and sends me pictures, and I'm like, where are you?
Wait, and she says the same thing every time. Why don't you just ring the bell? And I'm like, oh yeah,
I'm home.
Well, now folk music is restricted to PBS and the
Right.
PBS audience,
Fundraising.
which is not going to.
But can I
But
have
they
to,
did
I
a
have-
really good American Masters, I believe it was, on Buffy St. Marie that I watched. It was
yeah.
amazing.
Are you a fan of Martha Redbone at all? Have you heard Martha Redbone? You should listen to her, Bruce. I think you'd really like her. She's a Native American Black artist. She's a great singer first off, but she did an album a couple years ago where it was all William Blake poems.
Yeah.
And it's a title of a William Blake poem, which I can't remember the title of the album. She not necessarily folk, but she very much draws on Native American music and R&B and everything. She's a great singer too. I mean, I think you might enjoy her. You can go.
And let me just say this: I learned so much about Buffy watching it. She's a really smart lady, very smart, and she was
Very
smart.
articulate.
Yeah, very articulate.
Very articulate.
She was very articulate.
Go figure. I don't know how she could string a word, especially since she had to learn English, because she's not American.
I mean, all the things.
Very articulate. Jesus Christ. I mean, it's good every once in a while to just get that reminder. Oh, yeah, right.
Mhm.
As I said when I read this stuff, because I'm the last person to have seen Barbie, and I saw it last week. You saw Barbie? You saw Barbie, Courtney?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You have to see it, Bruce. It's hilarious. But I'm not giving anything away, but when Ken has his epiphany, he says, I'm going to my Mojo Dojo Casa house. And that's where Jan Wenner will retire to, his Mojo Dojo Casa house.
It actually was better than I thought it would be.
Oh, it's
I was
great.
Like, I don't know what this
it's
is going
great.
to be,
It
but
really
it was
is
actually
great.
better than what I thought.
And then we'll take it out. I have had I'm Just Ken in my head, the song, all freaking week.
Well, I'm about to put on my Janissie and Aftertones vinyl and just sit in here and rock out on that while I edit this show.
Okay. All right. Bruce Pollock, thank you very much. Buy the book. It is called Bleecker Street Tapes, Echoes of Greenwich Village. It is part of the wonderful series that is put out by our pal, Ira Robbins, as part of Trouser Press. And it has a blurb from our personal Jesus, Jim Farber, on the back.
I'm obsessed.
I talked to him last night. I have good news for you.
I'm obsessed.
No, I told him that
Jim
you're
Farber.
obsessed with him. He's a little afraid, which is why he'll do the show from a distance, because he is a little afraid of you.
Listen, he should be afraid.
No, he should be. So buy the book. It is available at places they sell books, which are called bookstores. Bruce, thank you so much. We are I've never taken us out. You take us out. I don't know the spiel. Go.
You don't know how to say what show we are, what network we're
156.
on? It's
156.
No, that happens at the beginning. Yeah, you're done.
Okay, go. Sorry.
Thanks, guys. You know what it is. Check us out on the Pantheon Podcast Network every week, where we sit alongside dozens of amazing shows on scripted, unscripted, every type of music. You follow us in all of the places. Leave a message. Talk to us on our Facebook page at ImmaLetYouFinish, all one word.
Walk down my street and take a picture of my house and just keep moving.
We're
if
on
you want.
Threads at ImmaLetYouFinish NY and all other things. And anyway, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, Bruce. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
It's NFL draft season, and that means it's time to start thinking about fantasy football. FantasyPoints.com features industry-leading experts and prognosticators using proprietary hand-charted data to help you score more fantasy points. FantasyPoints.com is the place to go for whatever kind of fantasy football you play. Whether you play fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or do a little bit of everything, Fantasy Points has the meticulously researched content to guide you to victory. And why wait for the fall? Fantasy Points also covers the new spring football league, the UFL. Join the guru, John Hansen, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, and other massive names in the fantasy football universe with an exclusive offer. Use code Pantheon for 15% off any Fantasy Points package, including the all-in package, with access to every article, tool, and data nugget that Fantasy Points has to offer. That's FantasyPoints.com and code Pantheon for 15% off at Fantasy Points. FantasyPoints.com, code Pantheon. Score more fantasy points.